Welcome to Here Comes the Boom, a Kentucky recruiting podcast brought to you by KSR and KSR Plus. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Polacheck, and it's been a wild week in the recruiting world. It's been a wild month. There's just so much going on. We're ready to get into all of it, but before we do, be sure to go and subscribe to KSR Plus. We've got some great info over on the message board. We've got exclusive interviews with a bunch of different recruits. Talked to Jordan Smith yesterday. We got an interview with Caleb Wilson over the weekend. So be sure to go check that out. But let's talk about everything that's happened this past week, starting with Tounde Yessoufou. He cut his list to 3 schools: Arizona State, Baylor, USC. Kentucky is now out of the running for the 5-star wing forward. Kentucky was a school that was pushing hard for Tounde. He was set to visit for Big Blue Madness. That visit, of course, has been canceled. But now it's very interesting that he cancels his Kentucky visit and rules them out right after Caleb Wilson takes his official visit. My thinking is that Kentucky has really prioritized Caleb Wilson, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Arizona State, Baylor, and USC, 3 schools that can offer big money NIL. Baylor seems to be the school that's talked about a lot with Caleb, and I know that they can offer some big NIL, so it makes sense. It's not a huge surprise that Kentucky's out. I'm kind of surprised it happened this quickly after Caleb Wilson's visit, but I'm not raising any alarm bells. This doesn't seem like something that is a problem for Kentucky. I think that it just shows that they're in a better spot with other prospects. So don't be concerned. Tounde Yessoufou no longer on Kentucky's board. I got a lot of texts when that happened saying, hey, he was one of my favorite prospects in this 2025 class. I really wanted him to go to Kentucky. I liked him too. He's one of my favorite prospects in this class, but you can't get every 5-star. I didn't think I'd be saying that when Mark Pope was first hired, that you'd have to be turning away 5 stars, but it makes sense. Kentucky's now on to some other players like Caleb Wilson, who, let's talk about right now, took his official visit to Kentucky. And by all accounts, it really was an amazing visit. Going into the visit, the thought process was taking visits in the fall, make a commitment sometime in the spring. I talked to him on Monday, and he said, I'm looking to commit sometime in November and December. So the timeline has been moved up after his first senior year official visit, that being to Kentucky. And basically this visit checked off every box that he could ask for. He really wanted to see the play style, how he fits in. Well, Mark Pope got to take Caleb to 2 different practices, got to watch the team play, love what he saw, sees himself fitting in very well there. He got to meet with a lot of the guys on the team. Andrew Carr was a guy that he said he talked to for a while. And then he got to watch the Kentucky versus Georgia football game, which was a real fun one. He got to do that alongside Kentucky 4-star center commit Malachi Moreno in the 2025 class. He's close with Malachi. He's gotten to know Jasper Johnson pretty well. So those are 2 guys that are both trying to recruit him. But surprisingly, Caleb is starting to do some recruiting of his own. I know he hasn't committed yet, but while on his official visit to Kentucky, he was tweeting at 4-star point guard Acaden Lewis saying, hey, come on over, bro. Acaden is someone that is supposed to visit Kentucky sometime in the next month. And Caleb is already recruiting. It's surprising to see. I know a lot of this might be the high of an official visit. After an official visit, you hear a lot of players being like, I want to commit. And then they start to take some other visits, get the feel for where things stand, and maybe not make a rash decision. But I think that Kentucky has made up a ton of ground over the summer. I think Kentucky did a ton of great things on that official visit with Caleb Wilson. And I think they're in that top group of schools for Caleb, with Arkansas. Arkansas is really the big contender that I hear for Caleb. You got Tennessee in there, UCF. So there are a few other schools, but Kentucky and Arkansas are the two that seem to be ahead of the pack, and I like where Kentucky stands right now. Let's chat a second about our good friend Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Well, Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to you, so what do you have to lose? Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. So let's talk about where Kentucky goes from here. Their 2025 big board is kind of dwindling down. You can find that over on the KS board. But that's really a good thing. They're trying to narrow in on who they want, and they've got two big official visitors coming up with Chris Sinak and Michael Brown set to visit September 27th through the 29th. Michael and Chris, it's really interesting with both of them because they both play positions that Kentucky is going after other players. Michael is a point guard. Obviously, Kentucky already has Jasper Johnson. They're going after Acaden Lewis. And then Chris Sinak is a power forward who kind of conflicts with where Caleb plays. I know Caleb is considered a big wing, a modern-day stretch four that can play the three, can play all over the court. But I don't really see a world right now where Kentucky brings in both Caleb Wilson and Chris Sinak. That seems like it would be difficult to pull off. I don't really see the vision there. I think that if you can get both of those guys to commit, you take it. They're five-star guys. They're top of the class, and you find a way to make it work. But I do think that it might be tough to bring both of them in. So if Sinak isn't to commit to Kentucky, the schools to watch with him, you got LSU, you got Arkansas. Those are really the two big ones. You got Houston involved. So plenty of schools after Sinak, but we'll probably get an idea of where things stand after his official visit coming up later this month. Let's talk about Big Blue Madness because Malachi Moreno was the one guy that was set to take his official visit for Big Blue Madness, but Team USA has their training camp over in Colorado Springs that weekend, so he won't be there. Taj Ariza, 2026 prospect, he was a guy that I talked to who said, I'm thinking about visiting Kentucky for Big Blue Madness. That's probably not going to happen. He's going to be at that training camp. It's going to be tough to get a ton of top guys on campus for Big Blue Madness because most of them are going to be at this training camp. But we're already starting to see some guys set visits. I'm expecting at least one 2025 player, but right now we don't have any confirmed. One 2026 player to watch for Big Blue Madness is Anthony Thompson, 6'7" forward out of Western Reserve, same school that Nico Bundalo transferred from to go to Prolific Prep. Thompson's a top 20 player in the country. Kentucky really didn't start getting involved until about 2 weeks ago when Cody Feger visited him at his school. 2026 prospect, a lot of time, but when we don't have a big list of visitors for Big Blue Madness, that's certainly a significant one. We'll keep an eye out for Big Blue Madness visitors. I'm expecting a lot more to be added to the list very soon. And like I mentioned, I'm expecting at least one 2025 official visitor. So that could happen. But now let's talk about some of Kentucky's top recruits with On3 national basketball analyst Joe Tipton. Welcome back. I'm now joined by On3 national basketball analyst. You know him, Joe Tipton, Tipton Edits. Joe, thank you for coming on again.
Absolutely, Jacob, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. It was actually yesterday if you're watching this when it comes out, but you don't know that. But we don't know that because we're filming this on Wednesday. But I want to ask about some of these top targets from Kentucky. Obviously, it's been a crazy week in recruiting. Caleb Wilson just took his official visit to UK, and there's been a lot of talk about maybe a package deal. We'll get into that, but I want to start by just asking about what your read is on Caleb's recruitment so far. This was obviously his first official visit of his senior year. So where do you think things stand with Kentucky, and who do you think are the big contenders there?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think there was a lot of smoke around Arkansas right around Peach Jam. And I think Caleb's recruitment was starting to wind down. And Arkansas and John Calipari were the favorites to land him. But there was an uptick in his recruitment after a really solid play in North Augusta at Peach Jam. Obviously, Kentucky's a school that got involved in several others as well, like BYU and Alabama and those sort of programs. But Caleb's visit to Kentucky over the weekend, from all reports, was an extremely positive one. And there's a lot of momentum in Kentucky's favor here for Caleb Wilson. And we can talk a little bit about him kind of recruiting a couple other players here as well in a minute. But he's still going to take a few more visits, at least to my knowledge. He has one scheduled publicly for Alabama on October 4th. He also has a visit to UCF on the 27th of September, and he also has dates with BYU and Tennessee. And Jacob, you reported recently that Caleb was looking to move up his commitment timeline to potentially November or December, and that comes right off the back of him visiting Lexington, which is interesting timing there.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much of that was just the high off the visit, kind of want to make that decision quickly. But by all accounts, it seems like he wants to commit sometime in November, December. Talk about another guy, point guard Acaden Lewis. He's supposed to visit Kentucky sometime in the next month or so. He hasn't publicly announced his visit yet, but I know Kentucky's making a strong push. He just put out his top 4 with a Tipton edit. And where do things stand with him? Who do you see as the big contenders in that 4?
Yeah, so a lot of this depends on how things shake out with a couple of other players, and I'll get to that in a minute. But right now, I would say UConn and Kentucky are the 2 schools that I hear the most in his recruitment. He's going to UConn this weekend for an official visit. They're heavily involved with him as well. Kentucky is obviously strongly in the mix too. UNC is also on his list. And the one that I mentioned that is dependent on another player's recruitment is Duke. They are recruiting Caden Boozer and his twin brother Cameron Boozer, 2 of the top players in 2025. Caden and Acaden are the same position at point guard, and Caden is expected to commit first. So if Caden picks Duke, I would expect that knocks them out for Acaden. If the Boozers pick a school like Miami, then I think Duke really ramps things up with Acaden and kind of gives the other schools on Acaden's list a little bit more run for their money there. But I would say that Kentucky's in a good spot with Acaden.
Talking about Acaden and obviously Caleb Wilson, they've kind of taken social media ablaze this week. I know Caleb tweeted at Acaden after he dropped his top 4, saying, "Come on over, bro." That was significant because he tweeted that out while on his official visit to Kentucky. Joe, what do you make of all this, and what do you think of just this overall kind of social media recruiting among top prospects?
Yeah, interesting that Caleb says, "Come on over, bro," while he is on campus at Kentucky, like you said. I hope I'm not reading this too deeply, but almost in essence recruiting him to Kentucky, even though Caleb is uncommitted. Now, like you said, he might have been on a visit high, and he might, of course, while you're on a visit like that, you're imagining what it's like for you to be at that school, and those coaches and the players are making that pitch to you to be a wildcat in a way. But usually I don't really pay much attention to this. You'll see it. Occasionally players will recruit, their friends or their teammates or just people they're buddies with. And I usually don't look too deeply into it, but this one's interesting because it seems to be a little reoccurring. I think Caleb's done it twice now. I think late last night he could just kind of tweeted like eyeball emojis at Acaden, and Acaden quote tweeted and responded with eyeball emojis back. Now, maybe they just saw the Twitter numbers that it brought them, and it's great for building their brand. It could be that, or it could be that they're actually truly considering going to school together. But either way, I think it's very engaging, and the fan bases seem to love it. I just hope that they're not building up Kentucky's hopes for nothing.
I will say that Caleb and Acaden did play together over the summer at a slam event, and I talked to Caleb, and he said he loved playing with Acaden. I know the two of them really do like playing alongside each other, and Kentucky is one of the schools on both of their lists. Let's shift over to talk about another guy that maybe isn't getting the same amount of buzz as them right now, but things should pick up soon. Chris Sinak, who's set to visit Kentucky later this month for his official. How do you think Kentucky stands there? I know Houston, LSU, Arkansas, those are a lot of the schools involved. Where do you think Kentucky stacks up right now?
Yeah, I think it really a lot of it depends on what Caleb Wilson does. They're both power forwards now, and you could probably play Chris Sinek at the 5 and Caleb at the 4, and Caleb could probably even play a little bit of 3 as well. But, we talk about Acaden, Caleb, and even Jasper all wanting to potentially play together, but you throw Chris into that mix. Does he want to play with him as well? Like, he's not mentioned in some of these eyeball tweets, you know what I mean? Like, he's not in Instagram comments, not that I've seen, kind of alluding to a team up. Like, would he want to play with those dudes? Is that too much superstar power? So it sounds like Caleb's going to make his decision first, as you reported, if he does commit in November or December. Chris has always said that he's going to wait a while, a little bit past that time point. So, obviously Caleb's recruitment can change, Chris's recruitment can change, but Chris has been to Houston and Tennessee so far, 4 official visits. He goes to Auburn this weekend and then Kentucky the following weekend. He's also has a visit set to Arkansas and LSU as well. His recruitment is still pretty early in the mix. I've always heard that he is really fond of Kentucky. He's also really fond of Arkansas, and he's from Louisiana, so LSU's been in there the longest of those 3. But his recruitment is going to take a while, and it's kind of one of those things that time will tell.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you always coming on this show. It's always great to talk to you. We'll be on the lookout for some Tipton edits coming up soon. I know this is a busy time in high school basketball recruiting. Thank you again for joining us.
All right, Jacob, anytime, man. Thank you so much.
My final thought of the day is Kentucky is on fire on the recruiting trail. That's really what this is about. Caleb Wilson's visit probably couldn't have gone any better, and that just sends a message to all these top recruits out there. Kentucky can recruit. You come on an official visit to Kentucky, you're going to get the Kentucky experience. I think it sends a message to a lot of different recruits, specifically in this 2026 class that's really considered a loaded class, maybe even better than 2025. So if they see Kentucky put together a really solid class in 2025, it could bode well for the 2026 class. We'll see what happens on these official visits coming up. I'm excited to follow along, and we'll have updates for you over here on Here Comes the Boom, over on KSR, and of course over on KSR Plus and the KS board. Be sure to go and subscribe. I'm Jacob Polacheck, and my dog is having a little fun right now, so I'll have to leave now. Thank you all for coming on, and we'll see you again soon.